to the latest episode of Enterprising Minds, the always cage-free organic podcast. Today we have 3 topics to discuss, and Ruthi's going to go first. So what do you have? What do you have today?
All right. So I read an article recently. The Age of Average by Alex Murrell. Murrell, not sure pronunciation. Apologies ahead of time. Here's a just brief quote to give you the gist. The interiors of our homes, coffee shops, and restaurants all look the same. The buildings where we live and work all look the same. The cars we drive, the colors and their logos all look the same. The way we look and the way we dress all look the same. Our movies, books, and video games all look the same. And the brands we buy, their adverts, identities, and taglines all look the same. And what's fantastic about this article, which of course we'll toss in the show notes, is it's filled with different examples of just, you look at 10 different toothbrush ads and you can't tell them apart. Or there was a shot of all these different white SUVs. And on first glance, I honestly thought it was all the same car. And then I looked a little closer and I went, oh no, those are 20, 30 different cars that look somewhat identical at first glance. And so my question is, does this apply to marketing? Are we in the age of average for marketing? Do we see a growth in variety in advertising? Or are we seeing more of everybody's kind of doing the same and get the same visual, the same imagery, they're doing the same tactics? Let's open it up.
So, yes, I have some immediate thoughts, and it actually relates to an episode of one of my favorite podcasts that came out yesterday with Brian Clark, and they talk about differentiation, right? So, and that is something that companies have always struggled with, right? If you go way back, the example he brings up is, Schlitz beer. Everybody at the time was talking about the purity of the water. This is pure beer and, whatever else. But it took a copywriter to go look at the process and how Schlitz was actually, creating the beer and then creating a narrative around it. And that was the thing that took them from the number 5 beer in the US at the time to being tied to the first, right? Because people latch on to story. That's just human nature. Right. I personally, I do feel that when we are always tracking everything, you are naturally going to play to the mean. Right. And we see this with a lot of good enough content. I've been feeling this a lot with playing around with the AI stuff where, I know there's a percentage of people, more than I probably want to admit, that are just taking the GPT stuff and publishing it and not really doing copy editing because they don't care about narrative as much as I do. And yeah, I think there are a lot of pressures that go into playing to the mean. And we can get into that. But Alex, you have your inquisitive face.
Yeah,
so
gears are turning, man. I'm kind of all over the board with this one. So a couple different points. So one is that article. I read that article as well, Ruthi. Appreciate you sharing that one out. There was near the top, there was a story about these 2 Russian painters. And they had this goal of basically showing off the art styles of the world. So they had all these surveys done in particular countries. I think there's like 6 or 7, maybe more of that. Kenya was involved. The US was involved. Canada, China, a number of others. And the surveys basically came out, and then they would paint what people responded in the surveys. And the surveys were all about, what do you want? What do you like in your paintings? Do you like abstract? Do you like curved lines? Do you like straight lines? Do you like this or that? And it all basically ended up being the exact same painting. There was one that was a little bit different, but there was basically a landscape with a tree and some blue sky, and that's it.
Yeah.
everybody basically picked the same thing. So I would at first glance, yes, everyone has seemingly come to the mean and the average in this case. But I'm a big fan of the Minneapolis Institute of Art. And inside of that, they have an amazing early Japanese art exhibit. It's one of the standard ones that they have, doesn't rotate. And there are some amazing, beautiful landscapes that pretty much hit that same kind of criteria. And if you go to different areas and different cultures, pretty much the same thing. People like blue skies and nice trees and that sort of landscape. There's a very human element to that. So are you revealing what is truly human, or are you showing the current interests of the time? And that one, to me, says this is just a little bit more humanity than anything else, that this is something that we seem to find peaceful. Or those who do a lot of art and share it and seems to be popular, that's the thing that they do. And that's what's popular by those culture standards at those many different times, like literally 5,000-6,000 years. And it's still been basically the same thing. So
I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dave's going to go.
Yeah.
Well, in listening to you describe it that way, I can't help but thinking, if that was true, really cheap motel art would be a lot more popular than it is. Right? Because it's always the most inoffensive lighthouse on a coastline that, like...
But that is popular, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, look at that.
No, it's popular.
That's what's on the racks.
I think I'm going to run with that. Because it is popular in the mainstream. Like, it's the middle of the curve.
Yep.
But the extremes are so diverse from that lighthouse.
But that's where the interesting stuff happens, right? Is on the extremes. Like, Monet is great. I appreciate his technique, right? Klimt is great. Awful at hands. Like, if you ever look at his, like, he could not figure out how to do hands. But yeah, that's fine. For me, I think like the Dada movement becomes really, really interesting because of what was happening, in that time. What was it a reaction to, right? And I guess this is my bias towards what's the context of everything. Like, the art is created in a context of something or in response to something. Landscapes are great, but they don't hit me emotionally, right? It would be like listening to smooth jazz. It'd be like, yeah, that's fine, but I'm not going to listen to this more than the elevator ride I'm in. Like,
well, here's kind of the next one. So that's almost like an identification of a mass market. And basically you don't want to branch too far outside of the mass market. Maybe you want to test and experiment if you have the resources for it, but you don't want to push the envelope too hard. I think about that with the vehicles piece of the high cost to engineer, market, promote, and push a vehicle. If you look at any main vehicle manufacturer, their lineup is pretty small. 10 cars, 6 cars. It's not really that many. I mean, that's a pretty big bet that they're putting on that, plus, the machinery and everything that's involved behind the logistics standpoint. That's a huge bet. So how far beyond what the current surveys and studies, what do they show, and how far beyond that do you want to really push? Same thing with the toothpaste ads. I kind of think of it as, I would love to take some of that budget and test some new stuff and play around with it. But man, I would probably keep most of it to be just rock solid, pretty bog standard stuff, because the market literally is everybody. So it's pretty hard to go abstract.
I got something, Dave. You ready?
Will you hit high levels? No, but you won't hit low levels. So it's a safe bet. That's the awkwardness of it.
This is what bothers me about lazy ass marketing.
I mean, there's that. I mean, that is probably like, most of it is like last year's budget plus 10% and keep it rolling.
Because, I mean, here's the thing. The whole point of marketing is to segment your audience into people who may be interested to buy, people who want to buy, right? And if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing, right? So you can go the safe route. You can do the most beige, boring, kind of ad copy and whatever else. And that will play well to plenty of people, right? But if you want loyalty out of your consumers, or you want recognition, brand recognition, you have to do something other than beige and white. Like nobody feels good getting into a gold Camry, right? I mean, you want to think that you're in like a Lamborghini or a Ferrari, and those are the posters people put on their walls. It's never I have an accountant car.
I think the two of you have sort of explained, in my mind, 80 to 90% of this averageness in marketing, which is, on the one hand, you do have that human effect, which is people tend to like similar things. It seems that it seems we have to test that, right? Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, you've got either lazy marketing or just the wrong incentives and environment in most corporations, which is it's profitable to do the status quo. You can project, yep, this white SUV is going to make this amount and we're going to hit this market. And that's easy to project.
Right. Who is afraid of losing their job in the organization? Is it the CMO? Is it the mid-market managers? Or is it the tacticians? Right.
And that, I think, is the other piece, which is you're going to have these bright spots of innovation in marketing, product development, which probably comes about with the right environment in a corporation. Like if you can't stick your neck out, or it's not easy, or you don't have the right team to be able to do it, it's really hard. Mm-hmm. And I've been reading Emotion by Design, which is by the former CEO, now retired, of Nike. Mm-hmm. And he gets at a lot of this, which is sort of now coming together for me, which is you have to inspire and create those sorts of environments for teams to do that, which is Nike so amazing. And tying back to your, what is the Schlitz beer? Mm-hmm. They take a look at the root of it. What's the narrative? What's the story? And they build on that. Well, then Nike does something amazing. They put it out there. Then the rest of the group follows and goes, oh, okay, yeah, that worked. Let's just do what Nike did. Mm-hmm. That's easier because we don't have the internal engine to be able to make that happen. Or I think about the iPhone. Right? Like they came out and they put something in the market, it stuck, and now all of a sudden we have an entire industry that kind of looks like the iPhone. I mean, we haven't evolved that much. And so maybe it's marketing innovation follows the same as product innovation, where you have some leader in the market doing something new, and then it sort of works, and then everybody follows along. That's my theory of average marketing.
Especially with the iPhone as well, right? It was so dominant when it came out, which, remember, it was the second smartphone on the market. It wasn't number one. Mm-hmm. But then after it became so dominant, a lot of the ads that were coming around were, well, we're not Apple, and it targeted the people who just don't want Apple. And I remember talking to some of my friends when it first came out, and they're like, I will never buy an Apple product. I will never have an iPhone. And what do they have now? iPhones.
Like what, half the US now? About 50-50 now. Android.
Something like that, yeah.
Not really a third either. One other interesting one. So really fun TED Talk to watch is Malcolm Gladwell's Pepsi one. And he has a number of stories. One of them is like, man, you go to the aisle with spaghetti sauce in the grocery store, and why on earth does Prego have 30 different types? That was kind of an interesting question. And there's surveys behind that, and he starts to explain out what people like, what people don't like, and where it kind of clusters. And that's kind of his whole point, is that humanity seems to find these different clusters. So his main story that he has is basically talking about at that time, and if I'm remembering this correctly, the largest in-person survey ever done was Pepsi. They went around in this basically semi-truck around the entire United States, and they had people come into it and say, here's a couple different cups, tell me which one you like. And what they were doing is they were trying to figure out basically how much aspartame to put into Diet Pepsi. So 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, basically, what do you guys prefer? And so massive study goes on for months. And as he says, there is no perfect Pepsi. There are Pepsis, because the data clustered, and it clustered pretty hard around a couple different points. So do you make 5 of them, or do you make 1? And it becomes this giant decision of like, well, do you go for the average that, 10% probably will find disgusting, 10% will probably love it, and a whole bunch of people in the middle will maybe buy it? I mean, like, and depending on how hard those clusters are, it's pretty hard to pick an average then. So that becomes this interesting question of humanity. I mean, and all the many different art styles. I think there's a point to why we have so many different art styles, is because humanity does have these clusters, and you do have, like Dave was saying, reactions to the average of, man, this was the trend forever, and my gosh, I need to react against it. And I say that fully knowledgeable that the wall color behind me is gray. Ruthi, what's yours?
Oh, white.
White. Okay, Dave.
It's a very, very, very light gray.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we really haven't
or very dark white.
Too far.
You will not find a gray wall in my house. I am pushing back against that trend. I cannot stand it. Done. I realize white is a trend too. Fully recognizing.
Yeah, we're building our own institutions for ourselves. That's what
I just really want next episode to have like an orange wall behind Dave or something like that. And it's just like, that's it. We're reacting against this.
Yeah. Well, Ruthie has some options. She could go get one of those LED, flashy color change lights, and then each week have a different wall color.
It's true.
It's true. Or just go straight green and just green screen it every single time. That would be fun.
Mm-hmm. Although, it is interesting, the same thing. It occurs to me as we talk about it. Filters on Instagram and on TikTok are like this too, where it's, I don't know if it's just people do I say this?
Are they trying to fit in?
Well, fitting in, but then also just so insecure about how they look that they feel the need to always do that, right? Because personally, I get really annoyed by those filters. Like,
I think that links back to this. It's not so much lazy marketing. It's you have to have an environment of creativity and an environment that allows you to do something different and feel good about it. And TikTok and Instagram are not environments where it necessarily pays to be different than what people expect. I mean, in some, right, there's niches, and I think your point of clustering, Alex, is key, which is there's clusters, right? But if you do not feel like you're part of one of those environments, put on the filter. I got sad.
We need a new punk rock movement. I want to see mohawks and nose chains, and
the moment it happens, people will say, "Oh, that's just retro."
And
that just like knocks it down. It's like, yeah, you're not original.
Mm-hmm. All right, who's up? Who's up next?
All right, I'm in a dark spot now. So Alex, go.
If you look at subgenres of any music, main kind of music genre on Wikipedia, it is very fulfilling of trying to find new music styles, but also just the creative stories behind all of them. And also, my gosh, how many there are. I'm a big fan of EDM, and it's insane. It's insane how many little subgenres or sub-genres there are. So that's kind of fun. Fun way to find some new stuff too. Okay, so mine, I said, is a kind of a philosophical question. So it is, hopefully won't take too much time, but Dave, feel free to cut it off at some point so we can get to yours as well. So the main question is, should I still learn a skill that AI can do?
Yes.
And I got some additional
but To me, okay, I'm sorry. Before I jump in, were you done? You were? Okay.
Yep, all set.
Audio version of that's gonna sound like an asshole. But all right. I think you should. In one of the episodes we talked about, is AI like the steroid scandal of the 90s for baseball? I kind of feel like it is. It will enable you to do more with what you're good at, right? It's not going to suddenly make you a coder when you don't know the coding language, right? Because you won't be able to QA it. You're going to break something. Will you be able to write a bunch of the bad emails? Yeah, absolutely. But we're at a point too where you need to be able to understand how these things work and truly understand how they work in order to take advantage of them to the fullest. Because otherwise, if the AI companies roll out some sort of like digital watermark, or there's enough people searching the same topic over and over again, you're going to start getting the duplicate content, because there's not really that many combinations for niche topics, right? That's where my head is, at least at this point. You need to understand how things go, and everybody does have their lane, right? To our point of the 3 different perspectives on art and the mean and whatever else, right? It's going to fast track you towards what you're good at, but you're still going to need to supplement yourself with a team of people that cover your blind spots, just like any good manager, any good team would do, right?
Counterpoint. No.
All right,
Although I
Ruthi.
am somewhat convinced by enable you to do more with what you're good at. I think that's a very good point, Dave. And on the counterpoint, using AI, let's take coding, for example, right? And coding to do custom functionality on your website. I don't need to learn that. I can do by myself with my own website all kinds of new things that the amount of time and effort it would have taken me before AI would have made it unsurmountable. So do I need to go and learn how to do that custom coding in order to make this functionality happen? Well, no, I just use AI. And it doesn't seem worth the cost, which that brings me to this idea that there are different types of activities you're using with AI, and there's going to be some things for which, no, it does not benefit you to learn the skill in order to use AI. Or if that's not an area of interest already, perhaps is the piece. Whereas if there is an area of interest already, yeah, go for it, because you learning plus being able to use AI is going to enable you to do a lot more than you otherwise would. But if there's just sort of tactical admin type things that, you're not super excited, but they're allowing you to do what you really want to do, then yeah, don't bother. Outsource that. Like, AI can handle it.
Well, this is one of the things for me when, first started playing around with it. My aunt, for years and years and years, had her own graphic design business. And so when DALL-E first showed up, I was playing around with it and I sent it to her and just went, hey, check this out. What do you think? And, she had that visceral reaction. Like I think a lot of graphic designers and visual artists had, where it's like, oh my God, what? For me though, most of what I use stock images or like the AI art for would be a header image on the blog or the social post, something to draw the continuity between you see the promotion on Facebook or Instagram or something else, and then you see that same photo as the header of the blog, and we're good. Right. Because finding those photos has always been a long, arduous thing. But now if you have something that can easily summarize it, boom, you're done. great. I have no expectation of copyright on those things. So I don't mind, right, if somebody else has some other image like that, right? Found out T-Mobile and I are using the same stock photo. And that's fine, right? But when GPT came out and all of a sudden it was the writing, then I had that visceral reaction because I didn't really care about the visual piece, right? Because my ends are different with that. I'm happy to find out in my months of playing with it that I'm actually not that worried about writing right now with it. Like, the limitations are pretty bad. I do fear, though, that the amount of bad content and misinformation and hallucination that people are experiencing is going to make people so cynical about what written text online is actually correct versus what's AI, and where do I place my trust, right? That's kind of a red herring, though. But we will. Alex, you've been kind of quiet. What is your question? What's your thought?
Got a couple. So in preparation for this, I also looked on Quora just because I thought this would be kind of fun, of what math teachers think about calculators. It's somewhat of a parallel here. And it was pretty fascinating. I mean, there's a lot of replies from like 5+ years ago on it. And they to reuse the word cluster, but they kind of clustered around a couple different ideas. Main one was, no, students shouldn't have them because they don't then understand the underlying aspects of it. And when they try to get into later forms of math beyond basic algebra, they're at a loss. That was one. The other one was, no, students should have it because it will hurt their mental memorization or ability to mentally compute things themselves. And there's too much use for that in life. Therefore, this is just something that becomes a hindrance to them. So you're teaching them to always have a crutch. And then there's another one that basically said, if you're really just going to do this one time and you're not really going to be continuing with your random calculus problem, random geometric problem that you ran into this one time, use a calculator.
Right.
And I kind of sit between those because this came up, this is a real life example. Yesterday, I was working on a giant keyword universe project. So literally over 12,000 keywords in a giant Excel sheet. And a whole bunch of them had state names in them or state abbreviations in them. So I wanted to know, okay, how many of these are geotagged? And it turns out the keywords were so similar to each other that any clustering software I tried couldn't figure it out. I was like, okay, I need an Excel equation that lists every single US state, every single US abbreviation, and says yes or no of does it exist inside this, cell or not, and do it all the way down for 12,000 times. Now, let's break this down a little bit. If this was handwritten, the entire thing, could I do this? Yes. Why am I using Excel? Because there's 12,000 of them, and I can copy paste, and I don't have to write 12,000 things from the other piece of software that I grabbed the data from. And then ChatGPT gave me a real nice equation that included everything, and I threw it into Excel, and Excel came up with an error and said it didn't work. And I was stuck. So there's the next problem of I didn't really understand it well enough to be able to debug the problem. And honestly, I thought my Excel formula skills were pretty good, and I couldn't figure it out, even though I do have a lot of experience in that particular area. And Excel, yes, the error messages are better, but my gosh, they're still awful. They really are not helpful. So I kept trying different things, and I basically just kept asking ChatGPT to write it, like, try this a different way, try this a different way, try this a different way, and basically copy pasted until it basically worked. And then I moved on with my day. Did I understand it still? No. Can I replicate that ever by myself? No. Will I ever be in a situation where I need to? Probably no. So then that one like passes the bar for me. That one's fine. Same thing with using like WordPress instead of hand coding a website. I'm not going to hand code a website. I'm going to use WordPress or Squarespace or your sponsor here. Please contact us. But
Alex, I've run into that same situation with the Excel and ChatGPT and using it in that way. And I think I think that's a really good example, and it showcases that the premium is on the abstract high level thinking of, I need to accomplish this. And how we get there and the means we use to get there maybe are secondary. Sometimes they're really important. You have to consider the means to which you get there. Depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But it's the higher level understanding of, here's what it is we need to do, that I think is more important than, I understand how to write the Excel function to be able to do this one particular thing, which, to your point, we might not do again.
Right.
And even if you did, you now have the Excel function.
Right. And I if I needed to do it again, I'd be on a computer using Excel. Therefore, I'd probably have internet access. Therefore, I'd probably have ChatGPT access. Still want to write it. That one's done. It's interesting because, do a little comparison of this. If you had asked me a year ago how to do this, there's a site that comes up more frequently than not called Excel Jet, and they have little tutorials, same as any other Excel helper website, that says, Bob, Larry, Greg, and apple, banana, orange, and if you do this formula, this will work out. And okay, now try to do that for whatever you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. I don't need to do that with Excel, with ChatGPT. With ChatGPT, I can say, list out all the state abbreviations. I don't need to go find a list of that or try to remember all of those. No, that's already done for me. Find a list of all the states, of course, that's done for me. And then now, properly put the semicolons and all the rest between all of that. Like, just transposing that data and grabbing it from Wikipedia or whatever source I grabbed it from, that alone would take me 10, 15 minutes, maybe, and a lot faster to write a prompt for ChatGPT. So I didn't learn it. In Excel Jet a year ago, I would have learned it. This time, I didn't learn it.
And that's okay.
Yeah, that's the question. Is that a loss or is that not a loss? I mean, and
I think underneath all of it, though,
yeah,
not everything has to scale, right? And I think that's one of the things that we're constantly focused on. I know there are going to be people who dislike this, but the most creative solutions, like the artists we discussed, the things that you can really get behind and will have an emotional impact, probably don't scale very well, which is why they stand out and why it takes such an investment for companies to do that. It has to be made a priority, because if you are optimizing for efficiency or return on investment in the short term, you will not fundamentally get the most creative answer, right? And GPT for the analysis will allow you to get the answer or an answer. So what though? Right? Because now it's the tactical piece. It isn't that high level understanding. We talk about with marketing, you want to reach your audience and you want to develop the relationship so that they continue to come back to us and buy from us and do that. But how many Amazon stores are there that really just import stuff from Alibaba, put it onto the Amazon drop ship, and just AdWord the hell out of you, right? Is that an equivalent of the GPT Excel formula? Maybe.
I like that bridge, Dave. Took me a second to get where you were going, but I like it.
This is the problem with thinking out loud. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm firmly planted in my sandbox, which is why, I have to toy around with these ideas. And I'm glad we have these discussions, because it does make me think, and it does showcase where I may be stuck, or I may be proven correct. I do feel like more people should understand the history of anything. before they jump in and say technology is going to save us or make this, utopia or whatever. I think it would be interesting to look at productivity gains for all of these software tools and whether or not we've actually had productivity gains with all of the tools or not. And will another one actually make a difference? Probably not, because you're dealing with human nature. Don't know. If anybody knows of a study like that, please let us know so that we can talk about it.
Well, we got to table that one. That's a good conversation, but we don't have time for that today. The impact of technology gains on human productivity. Alex and I studied econ. We're ready to go.
Mm-hmm. I have a semester of it.
All right, you got a question for us, Dave?
I did. Now I don't know.
Alex has had you question everything.
No, I'm kind of fixated on this punk rock thing. I think we need more rebellious outlets in our society. Healthy rebellious outlets, I should say, not what we have. One thing, I guess, one sort of open question I was seeing on LinkedIn was some of the thing. There was a person in the SEO realm that was showing, or they were making an argument around the duplicate content piece, right? Where if you're using it for title tags, if you're using it for body copy and everything else, that a lot of the same, like you can start seeing people just copy pasting and then it will show up in the SERPs if you search for that particular phrase. I'm wondering if either of you have tried this, have thoughts on the duplicate content argument or concern. Does Google just not care anymore because it's just going to be flooded with bad copy like it was previously? What are your thoughts on that?
I have seen that, and I played around with it. There's some old examples, I think, maybe a month or two ago, and that's what I mean by old these days. But it was basically this one particular phrase around some recipes or something like that, and this site that suddenly popped up suddenly had the same weird phrase over and over and over again. There's one that was just done, a pretty major site, and it was like travel guides. And there was this weird phrase, and it was in every single of their, like these random small town city travel guides. And not surprisingly, it was AI created, and same thing with the recipes, they were AI created as well. So can you get around that? Yes. There is particular limits. Even ChatGPT has some default settings, basically, that you can change to say, do you want a more kind of out of the box response, or do you want a more standardized response? So there's ways from the kind of new phrase of prompt engineering, you can get around that and play around with that stuff, including word choice, including how frequently it repeats itself. I mean, a lot of things you can do. Am I concerned about it from an SEO standpoint? I don't know, going back to Ruthi's thing, maybe this is the new mean. I mean, this is just the new average. The new average piece of copy is a ChatGPT piece of copy. And that's the new floor that basically you need to rise above. And it's smart to create it and start with it so that you have something, but then upgrade it and do better. The other thing is, as AI tools keep rapidly progressing, I would imagine that GPT 5, 6, 7, 8 will be considerably better with their word choice, and then this is a current moment issue.
I think at this point it might be a red herring for a couple of reasons. One, the points Alex just made, it could be we just have a new standard. Two, there's a lot of time and energy spent talking about duplicate content. A lot of time and energy that you could just be spending creating good, better content. Like, to me, it comes back to what's the user experience. And if you have several pages that have the same content or the same headers, that's confusing for a user. It's not helpful, right? They just read that on the previous page, perhaps, and now they're seeing it again. Like, that's just not particularly helpful. So ultimately, I think the discussion's perhaps a bit of a waste of time if instead you can focus on creating good quality content and experiences.
Then from one of the points you made, or part of your question too, was about Google. If you see how many AI co-written books are on Amazon, and they're all ebooks because they haven't even printed, fast enough to become that. Are we seeing ebook spam? I would say yes, and we're going to see more of it. It'll be any random topic you can think of will be an ebook, and it'll probably be available for a good old 99 cents because that's what they all seem to sell for.
Oh, quick prediction based on that, right? We're going to see the importance of publishers and content curators go up with this crazy influx in new AI human-created content.
I still think we're going to get an organic tag. Things will be tagged organic, AI supported or assisted or something like that.
Cyborg.
That's next.
How good do you think AI is with romance novels?
No idea. I don't.
Probably amazing because there's a million of them. And
they are pretty formulaic.
Lots of source content.
I know, like the corpus. I mean, just look at Danielle Steele. I mean, I know the name, not that I've ever read one of the books, just because anytime you go to a library, you can see shelves of that. It's a.
I mean, who doesn't love Fabio? Come on.
Whoever does the cover art on those, that's a Dolly like gold mine, because I imagine the cover art is just either there's a giant stack corpus out there that you could create a whole Dolly of just pure romance, trash book novels. I'm sure
silhouettes of the couple.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and
there's always a strong wind coming.
Right, exactly.
Some
my gosh, it's windy. Everywhere it's windy. And man, no guy can ever find a clothing store with shirts. Pants, yes. No shirts. They just aren't available.
They rip in, that strong of a wind.
That's right. That's right.
So speaking of Fabio, as two guys that are follically challenged, I think that's a perfect place to end. Thank you for listening. If you have any articles or any supporting evidence for any one of our arguments, please let us know. Like, comment, subscribe, share, and we will see you in 2 weeks with the next episode. So take care, and thanks for listening.
See you.